we called in the spirit of my friend's deceased grandmother, something like that. And we asked the spirit to give us a sign of your presence. And they said, okay, come back this day at this time, turn off all the lights, whatever. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. So that's what we did. And so we're sitting in this dark room, like pitch black, like no window, dark room. And we're all waiting. I look up in the corner of the room, and I see a pair of glowing green eyes in the corner of the room.
Wow.
And I was like, guys, look.
Welcome to another episode of Driving To The Rez
with microphone.
With your favorite hosts,
Larry
and Inelia. And today,
and Ask Me Anything
with Dr.
Kara
Consigli.
All
Yay!
right.
Hello, everyone. I'm so
Hello.
happy to be here.
So, first of all,
Yes.
do you prefer to be called Dr. Kara or Dr. Consigli?
or just doctor.
Or just Doctor?
I will take all three.
Oh, come on, make up your mind.
Dr. Kara.
Okay, I
Dr.
like that one.
Kara.
Yes. Dr. Kara,
Yes.
tell us about yourself. Give us a little intro on who you are.
Well,
Wait.
about 3,000 lifetimes ago, I decided to come back and incarnate on Earth. Well, point being is you have to be more specific.
Tell me a little
She's being
about
funny.
myself.
She's being funny.
Yeah.
I told a little, but
What
she went
about-
all the way
Let's
over
go to
back
the
to
beginning.
the beginning because you know
3,000
what?
lifetimes
Do you know
ago.
why?
More like 3
Because she's a
million life.
doctor.
She's a doctor.
More
Yeah.
like 3 lifetimes.
She likes to write theses.
It's true.
I'm going to answer your short question in a very long way with a lot of big words.
I need more parameters with this question.
She needs more parameters.
It's
Narrow
all
it
about the
down.
question.
Yes.
So
Why
who are you?
Yeah, who are you?
Who am I? Life's existential questions. Who am I? What is I? No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. How about what we really want to know is the journey that brought you to sitting in that chair right next to us.
Oh, now that is a good question.
But that comes
So-
later.
That's what this is going to be about. But we
Yes.
don't want to know that right now. We don't want to start with that.
Okay.
First, just where'd you go to school when you were a little kid?
That's a different question. Where did I go to school as a little kid?
Wait, no.
No.
Wait.
We're going to ask that.
We're going to ask you that one later. We don't want to be that specific.
Okay, that's later. All right. Where do we begin? So
Where do we begin?
Let's see, we have
3,000
no-
lifetimes
wait.
ago. Oh, okay.
Wait.
Okay.
So this is what happens when you interview a doctor.
Let's ask questions that help us focus a little bit.
Yes,
Okay.
let's focus.
Okay. let's
Tell me.
focus. Yes.
What book has had the most impact on your life recently? Reasonably recently would be nice.
Define recent.
Within the last, 10 years.
35 years?
Okay. I would say the most impactful was Interview with a Psychic Assassin by Inelia Benz.
Ooh.
Wow.
So good.
Nice.
So good. I mean,
Yeah.
all of your books really, but that one particularly is just so good.
Tell me, what was it about that book?
Well, I have a bit of a conspiracy theory side to myself.
Mhm.
As part of my awakening journey, I would say I delve deep into those circles, a lot of which are BS, a lot of them aren't. But what I loved about that book is it helped validate my truthing of like which ones resonated, which ones were real and which ones weren't. And not only that, it has an excellent love story. There's some really cool characters in there that are only in for a scene or two, and they have like the sparkliest robes you'll ever see ever. So
That's cool.
for all those reasons
All
and
right.
more,
Yes. Sounds good to me.
Interview with a Psychic Assassin.
Yeah.
Okay.
So good.
How about, what was your favorite movie?
Yes.
Ooh. So as a very proud nerd,
Uh-huh.
this is a tough question to
No.
answer.
Yes.
You can have more than one favorite movie.
So favorite movie, as in how many times I've seen it, or
Sure, let's go with that one.
Yeah, let's start with the one you watched the most times over.
Ooh,
Yes.
okay. The ones that I've watched the most times over, it would probably be The Fellowship of the Ring.
Oh.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings.
Of course.
Yeah,
yes.
that one's just so
Hobbit,
good.
Hobbit Girl.
Yes.
Just the first one.
Just the
I mean,
first one.
because it
First
has
one.
the most like whimsical elements of the trilogy, and I
Yeah.
love Rivendell. Oh,
Oh, I know.
oh,
It's so beautiful.
so good. And the Forest Elves.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
Fellowship of the Ring.
what movie had the most impact on you?
So, as a kid, I was obsessed with the movie Titanic.
Oh, yeah.
Obsessed.
Oh yeah.
Obsessed.
Wow.
I literally, for like a couple months, maybe even years, every day would come home from school and watch that movie over and over and over again.
Do you know why? Or
Was it the
did
boy? Was it the boat? Was it
All of the
you, an
above.
incarnation?
All of the above. So, I'm so glad you asked. As a young tween girl, it was probably the boy, Leonardo DiCaprio. My first crush as a girl. He was so cute. But I had like a morbid obsession with the sinking of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And that made no sense, especially as like a whatever 11-year-old girl that I
Right.
was.
You're not like by
Made
the
no
water or
sense.
anything, are you?
No.
No, not at all. But I did learn later, like when I went scuba diving and snorkeling for the first time, seeing a sunken ship underwater was the scariest thing ever. But I love the water. I still went in and like did it, but I'm like, whoa, there's something here. Fast forward a couple decades, I realized I had a past life where I should have been on that ship, but I wasn't.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice. You listen
And-
to your intuition, huh?
I know. And not only that, but I traveled a lot like that on those ships, and I loved them, like first class between Europe and the United States around the same time period. And I knew a lot of people who died on that ship.
Yeah.
So there was this like sense of like grief and guilt and, you know,
Survivor's
guilt. Yes, exactly. And like I love the time period. I just love that expression of that lifetime, and that time period really exemplified it on camera, and the movie was so beautiful. The costumes.
What sort of person were you in the incarnation?
I was a doctor.
Yes.
Were you,
She was a doctor, of
were you
course.
for or against the creation of the central bank?
For or against the creation of the central bank? Ooh, interesting. Well, with my political orientations at the time, Swiss German, my guess as being a newer member of society that went into the oligarchy, I basically married into a rich family. I would say I'd probably be for.
Probably why you didn't get on the boat.
Yeah.
Yes, probably why somebody said, do not get
Somebody
on
gave
that
you a-
boat.
Do not get on the boat.
Not
And
get
you
on that
listened.
boat. And I listened. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of these things. But they show up later in lives. Who knew?
Right,
No.
right.
Yeah, you probably really wanted to. And it's like, what do you want? No, don't do it.
Don't do it.
I wonder
Listen.
why. I wonder why.
Listen, son, just don't get on that boat.
I never looked at that lifetime of what didn't get me to go. I haven't looked. I will though, because now I'm curious. But I just saw today, fun synchronicity. I love synchronicities.
Hint, hint.
Hinted. There's a Titanic exhibition coming to Seattle.
To
We're
Seattle?
going.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I really want to go to that.
Let's go and get triggered.
Let's go and get triggered. See, yeah, that's the thing. So when it comes to favorite movies, when the amount of times I've watched it, I'm going to have to change my answer and probably say
Yes.
Titanic.
Yeah, I can imagine you watched the Fellowship of the Ring that many times.
No, not that many times.
Mm.
Yeah, you probably didn't have a life as a hobbit.
No.
Whatever.
Well, maybe.
Maybe an elf.
Maybe as an elf.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Not as a
Yes,
hobbit, though.
high elf, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Too
Forest,
refined.
maybe.
Okay, let
Yeah.
me pass on to you this next question, honey.
So, next on your favorites list, tell me about your favorite computer or video game.
What a fabulous question.
You do introduce yourself during the second hour as a gamer.
I do.
so-
This is a very big part of my life, more than you might realize, because a big part of my dissertation was actually gamification, game design, the psychology of games, teaching game design. Oh, I just love it. But when it comes to being a player, I have two answers.
Okay.
A video game and a computer game.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. So my favorite video game, this is controversial.
Okay.
It is
A
Final
warning.
Fantasy 8.
Hey.
So,
Tell us why it's controversial.
why is it controversial, you might ask? Well, here's the thing. Final Fantasy, long-standing series from Japan. Very famous. Very, very famous. And usually the fan favorite is Final Fantasy 7, which I do love, by the way. And I am replaying Rebirth right now. It is fabulous. However, I just love Final Fantasy 8 so much because it gets into time travel, go to outer space, there's sorceresses, there's possession through time and space. You're a a student to save the world in a magical school. It's just the best. I love it so much. And it's really a love story. It's a love story. Yeah. And for all of those reasons and so many more that I could spend a whole podcast talking about, Final Fantasy VIII is my favorite video game.
So how many times have you played it?
Ooh, at least probably 20 plus times.
Yes.
Which, if I'm being generous, 150 hours per playtime. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of weeks of time. Yeah. I usually replay it about once every 1 or 2 years, just because it generates those.
Didn't it get recently revamped on the graphics area?
It sure did. Oh, and that was so nice because the graphics, I mean, they were good for 1999.
Right.
But the latest revamp, it got a shiny makeover, but still had the same effects and elements to it. And it's so much better. Oh, it was just so great. Nice. So yeah, that's definitely a favorite video game because it's played on a console.
Right.
Now for computer game, my favorite, again, for sheer amount of clocked hours, World of Warcraft. Yeah. A lot of literal months played in World of Warcraft.
Which version are you playing on World of Warcraft?
So here's the thing. There are quite a few versions of World of Warcraft. I am a classic WoW player. And so there's the version that came out in 2003, 2004. I played it then. All the way up to maybe 20. I was in grad school at the time. So maybe like 2010 or so, and then stopped. And then a new version came out that's like the classic version, Reborn. And I played that again the last few months, years. And I love this game so much, I literally wrote a research paper about World of Warcraft. Nice. I have a published scientific article about World of Warcraft.
That was very great. Well designed for your career.
It was.
Play a lot of games and write a dissertation on it.
Pretty much. Yeah, that was a big element of it. And one of the things I studied in that paper was, as a World of Warcraft player, there's an element where you need to collaborate with other people. And I always loved how games were so good at encouraging you to work with others and work with each other in a effective way.
Right.
I love that about massively multiplayer online games. And I wanted to explore why. And more specifically, I found a guild that was all female. And I wanted to see, how do a group of women play differently than like a guild group of men or boys or guys or whatever, or a mix, right?
How was it different?
It was. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the elements were the same. Like, they were well structured. They did raids, which meant there were, roles, responsibilities, and, rules of engagement, which any good group has. But what I found to be very different is that the women just operated as a group of women. So I remember literally playing one time, and one of the one of the guild members, she was pregnant and gonna have a baby soon. And by the time when she was going into labor, like, everyone on guild chat was like, oh my God, so-and-so, she's in labor right now. And like, oh my God, that's so great. And it was like supportive of more like a more holistic expression of women gamers in a way that I have never seen people talk about birth in other guilds in World of Warcraft. Right. That's just one example. But overall, a lot of the structures are the same. It's just it felt like it gave women a safe space to game in a way that isn't as common. At least this was 10, 15 years ago, where there was more of a stigma of being like a female gamer and all these things. And to have a dedicated space of women playing WoW together, it was just super cool. In research terms, I totally went native. So I was doing an ethnographic research investigation where you like insert yourself in the tribe, right? And you're supposed to study and be neutral. Yeah, it didn't work.
Didn't happen.
I was wondering a little about that. My first foray into MMOs, I can't remember the name of it. It was a game. It was, I think it's, well, you could do whatever, all kinds of things, the world kind of thing. It was funny because what I found myself doing was fishing for lobster.
Yes, fishing is great in WoW, by the way.
Yeah. And then you take the lobsters and they're supposed to recover your health. but the warriors like don't want to go fishing because it's boring. They want to go kill stuff. So
You
go
sold them the
catch
fish.
lobsters and you sell the lobsters for health. So I basically was fishing for lobsters and selling lobsters.
And that's what you do in real life.
That's what I did in the game. I'm like,
You're like, this is
This is just
working
a-
data point.
Yes.
basically you were playing WoW and doing research,
Mhm.
which is what you were doing in real life. So it's kind of like you go do the game and do your real life there. Was it the same kind of a thing?
In some ways, yeah.
In some ways, yeah.
I
Is that
mean-
pretty- did you find that in common with a lot of people? I mean, I don't know what the hacker slasher people are doing in their regular job, but
Ooh. Yeah, that
'Cause I
doesn't
was
translate as
catching
well.
fish,
Um,
literally selling them. And that's
At a
what I was
demographic
doing.
level, though, even today, there's not that many female players percentage-wise on World of Warcraft and other games.
yeah, it's pretty low. I would
Yeah.
say the highest point is probably like 25%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you find all these women?
Well, that's what was so great. They self-organized because everyone knows there's not a lot of women out there. And I just searched the internet, and they have a guild charter and a website out there. And they were
nice.
called, I don't know if they're still around, but at the time, they were called Daughters of the Horde and Daughters of the Alliance.
Nice.
And I just loved that. And so I joined the Alliance group. 'Cause, Alliance. Most of them were actually on the Alliance, which is an interesting data
interesting.
point.
Yeah.
Probably because of all the pretty characters.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, a lot of elements can arise out of video games. In fact, I learned more about macroeconomics from World of Warcraft than any university class I ever took.
nice.
100%. Like, I finally understood supply and demand
Yeah.
and, you know, like bubbles and all sorts of things just from playing that game. And it's like a microcosm of the global economy.
Yeah.
And even people who hack the system, like gold farmers and, you know, the central government, which is Blizzard, you know,
Yes.
making rules. And it's fascinating. And in fact, again, there were a lot of researchers that wrote studies about that, like
Mhm.
learn economics from World of Warcraft. So
Totally. Yeah, I could see that. It was RuneScape. That was what I was
I
playing.
was going to say, what was the game?
RuneScape.
I
RuneScape.
never played RuneScape. Now
was
you got
fun.
me intrigued about these
It was-
lobsters.
That was fun. It was fun. But
World of
you actually
Warcraft does have
they
that.
had-
It does.
They did set up a system there because you know you can get ripped off when you're trying to sell stuff. Then people like rip you off when they're getting it. So they had a kind of a system. It was interesting where you would have the thing and then you would offer it, and people say I'd like it, and they'd say, and you'd say okay, I want $10 or whatever, and then they would say okay, here's $10. Then you both push accept, and then it goes through. But if you push accept and they push accept later, there was one way that they could like change their price in the thing. And if you accepted
Nice.
their lower price, then you ended up with that. And I got ripped off a couple of times.
Oh,
Because, you know, when you do it
no.
after a while, you're like, yeah, sure,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
sure,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
sure.
yeah.
Some people like take advantage of that. But it was funny because it was so
Similar to what happened to you in
affronted
I
real
was
me.
going to
life.
say, that sounds
It's
like
like-
real life.
Didn't that happen
ripping
to
me
you?
off for my fish. Yeah,
Didn't it
for
happen
sure.
to you? Yeah, it happened to you in real life.
It's the same as real life.
hmm
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It was funny. So, PlayStation or Xbox?
Ooh, good question. So it depends on the time because
Totally. It's like it for every question.
I know it needs to be contextualized
Now,
in time and
today.
space.
Today,
When the
Today,
X-
PlayStation.
Okay.
10
Huh.
years ago, Xbox, all the way.
which version do you have?
I have the PS5 right now.
Which is the latest version?
The PS5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many others do you have in your closet?
Well, you know, I have given away a lot of them, but I currently have my PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4, mostly so I can replay the old Final Fantasy games. That's the only
there you
reason.
go.
I also have a Nintendo Switch and a Steam Deck on my gaming computer. I used to own at one time 10 Xbox 360s. And the reason being is I got a lot of them for free, and I was teaching game development on them. And so I had a undergrad and graduate level Xbox game development course where I taught
Nice.
computer science, all about like how do you do 3D graphics from code, from the ground up. And we had our students actually deploy their games on the Xboxes, which was amazing.
That is cool.
Yeah.
It was super cool. So at the time, I was like hardcore into
Totally
Xbox.
Yeah. If
Yes.
you'd have said PlayStation or Xbox 10 years ago, it'd be all Xbox.
I was all
the way.
Xbox 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
So
Now
what made
it's
you
like,
swap? What made you change?
well, a lot of it is driven by the titles and the tech.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I would say there's not a lot of games on the Xbox that I'm like, oh, I need to have an Xbox in order to play those games, because a lot of them are cross-platform, so you can play them on your computer or a PlayStation. And a lot of those games I've actually lost appetite for. I used to play like a lot of first person shooters and zombie apocalypse type of games. And as my frequency has risen, I'm like, that's getting harder and harder to do. For example, I loved the game Left 4 Dead. It was a zombie apocalypse game. So good. Best team player dynamics ever. But it's just horrific and I can't do it anymore.
It's horrific, yes.
Yeah. And I don't even think they even made a third sequel. But I have to have a PlayStation to play Final Fantasy. And that's the winner right now. We'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was PlayStation for SSX Tricky when that came out.
I loved SSX Tricky.
That was my favorite game.
It's tricky. It's tricky. Yes, so many games. I'm not going to sing that song, but the song's great.
She really did.
I almost did. I'm like, nope, this is a public
I heard
podcast.
that song so many times too. I was like, it was stuck in my head.
I love that song. I have one of my screen names is named off a character in that game, Kaori. I love that name, Kaori. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Very good.
Alrighty
then.
Wait.
What?
One last question. Have you messed around with VR yet?
Oh, many times.
So Oculus or Meta or whatever, which Apple one, which one's the one we should be looking at?
Yeah, again, depends on when. So
Which
now,
one do you have?
I actually don't own a VR headset right now.
Oh my God, we have two of them.
I know.
Well, we actually haven't been using them, but
No, we haven't.
No, there's
a little bit dark.
There's a different reason. But I would say there isn't a big drive for me to own one right now. If there's anything that's kind of interested me in the AR space recently, it's probably the new Apple goggle, whatever it's called. Mostly because I want a desktop monitor that's the size of my room.
yeah,
That's literally the only reason why I would want that.
yeah, that does look pretty cool.
And I can type like this on the ceiling. That just looks great. But the whole like interact with your world and I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I don't care about watching movies with massive 5G on my head. Nah. But the AR VR space actually has been an area of interest of mine for quite a while. And for a hot minute, I was researching that in my PhD days. I was using the Microsoft Kinect to do computer vision, and one of my projects, I worked with high school students, and we basically made an art exhibition from writing code and having like a massive display on the wall, and you would walk up to the Kinect, and there would be like objects like squares, circles, triangles that would fall on the 2D screen. And then there was collision detection. So if you like put your arms like this, you could like catch a bunch of stars and squares and things.
Nice.
And then there would be physics and they would bounce off. And then we put physical like balloons and cubes and things like in the physical space. And so there was a bunch of kids playing with these balloons and then seeing it on screen. And it was just like a fun exploration of AR back in 2010,
Nice.
just pretty old school now. But the VR these days, what I always found really interesting about it is that the human body cannot detect the difference between VR and real life. And there's so much potential in that. I know we've talked about this, Inelia, but basically like there's studies that show, if I think it's called like phantom arm syndrome, like if you put like your arm behind your back and you have a prosthetic arm on the table, and if you like whack it with a hammer or cut it with like a guillotine, very grotesque study by the way, you would like feel pain and flinch and experience like a reaction because your body thinks it's your arm, right? So take that to the next level with VR, where especially in these early games when like Oculus Rift, now Facebook, now Meta was trying to figure this out, there were some games where you would have these goggles on, it would feel like you, and then you would get shot. And it feels like you're getting shot. Like, that's not pleasant. That's not fun. No one wants that. But there's like another, there's a small study, a small research group in the University of Washington. They put together a VR simulation where you have multiple people come into the same room and meditate, and you see like their auras become one and then have this like circle of oneness. And then when people take off their goggles, they like have that feeling persist.
Nice,
right?
Yeah.
So like there's so many potential applications of VR that I think are just go so beyond like Beat Saber, which is a great game, by the way. It's like the DDR of lightsabers. Dance Dance Revolution meets lightsabers. It's great. But it's, I wouldn't think that those kinds of experiences are going to come from meta or the gaming world. Maybe like an indie game developer could create some really cool, simulations, possibilities.
Remember Jürgen Ziwi had his Afterlife meditation.
That's true. Yeah, you're right.
He created them for VR.
Yeah, I never ended up doing it. Did you guys try it?
We got the VR was to try that. I don't think we looked.
We couldn't find it.
We couldn't find it because I think it was Oculus and we got something else.
I don't remember. But it was,
we only got our Oculus. It was Oculus, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got our. No, it was a Meta.
We got Oculus and then Meta, which is the same thing.
Yeah.
We were super disappointed when we found out that it was actually the same machine.
Yes.
Yeah, because one was bought out by the other.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it's just a different version. Yeah.
Right. Somewhere he has
same version, different name.
Afterlife exploration VR thing, but we just didn't figure out how to do it, and we moved, and then we got a different internet, and then we haven't hooked him up yet. So maybe it's something we'll go.
Yeah, honestly, I would love to get back into that kind of stuff because I feel like the possibilities of VR can be so powerful for like manifestation. I mean, if you're like using the Force to manifest instantly, you take off your goggles and then do it again. It's like Neo in the Matrix. He's like, wait I am the Matrix.
What do you think about adding in that smell thing?
So for context, Larry found a Kickstarter where it's for Dungeons and Dragons players, and you have a contraption that releases smells of...
I wouldn't call it a contraption. It's a finely tuned electronic device that emits the smell of a white dragon or a red dragon or a cinnamon dragon.
I think they also said the smell of blood and gore.
Blood and gore, yeah.
When you sent this link, I literally thought it was a joke. I literally thought it was like an April Fool's joke.
They were looking for 10,000. They got last time I looked, it was 130,000 they raised.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be cool. Can you imagine if you hook that with your VR? So like walking by the pizza store and you smell the pizza?
I have to say...
You're like flying your spaceship and you smell a little sizzling electronics and you're like, oh, what's wrong with my spaceship?
Yeah, smells are a very powerful form of immersion, for sure.
If we were to take it one step further into the manifestation world, the smell of the thing that you're manifesting.
Smell of lilies or pine. Yeah, I would much rather do that than the smell of dragon gore.
Dragons, I wonder what they smell like.
Probably big horses. Lizards.
Smell like big lizards.
With a taste of charcoal. Or chicken coop.
Okay, enough of the VR world.
Okay.
How about we go back to the the RL world?
IRL.
In real life.
Yeah.
Where were you born?
I was this lifetime?
Yes.
I was born.
This lifetime, please.
This lifetime.
I'm just kidding. I was born in Littleton, Colorado, which is a suburb outside of Denver. And this is in the sort of southwest of the United States. Yeah. Right.
We all know where Denver is.
Do people know where
Everyone
Denver
knows.
is?
Denver
I
is
didn't think
famous.
so. I'm thinking of our international audience.
Yeah.
Everybody knows where Denver is.
I don't think they do.
Denver is a famous city.
I don't think it is.
It is.
Okay.
It's the second most famous city.
Tell us about your family that you were born to in this lifetime.
In this lifetime, your current parental units.
My parental units.
My current parental units. So I grew up in pretty standard middle class, white America, Denver.
Did you ski then since Denver?
Oh, yeah. We grew up skiing. So for context, Colorado is a very outdoorsy culture kind of place. So you're right on the edges of the Rocky Mountains. And then it just starts, the prairie, the Great Plains start. So you're right on an edge. And it's very high. It's a mile high, which is 5,000 plus feet above sea level. So you're just really high. And it's a dry, arid desert. So this actually gives cause for some really beautiful landscapes. Really beautiful sunsets, but a lot of outdoor activity. So we would go hiking, camping, fishing, a lot of things in the woods. Well, not really the woods, the mountains.
Ski patrol or ski racer?
None of the above.
What?
No.
Oh.
Although there were a lot of people who did that. No, I liked to ski growing up. It was common to like learn how to ski when you're like 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering if you did.
Yeah, and then I switched gears in maybe middle school, high school and learned snowboarding because that was the cool thing to do. So I do both.
So you're one of the cool kids.
Well, I don't know about that, but that was the idea.
That was the hope.
That was the hope. Don't think anything was going to help.
So were you the nerd in school or what?
You know, I was actually the misfit because I did sports, theater, nerd club, Japanese club, and
a cheerleader and skiing and
no cheerleading. No, I played sports though. But I was always the misfit wherever I was. So I was very good at sports, like varsity hat tricks, all that stuff. But
what's a varsity hat trick?
Oh, varsity is like the best.
Oh, I know a varsity
players.
Is, but what's a varsity hat trick?
Oh, like I would get hat tricks a lot on varsity.
Hat tricks.
Hat tricks is when you make 3 goals or more. So like in hockey, you have a hat trick. In my sport, lacrosse, you would get a hat trick. It's really nice to get 3. If you got 3, you got a hat trick.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So is that like Letterman or something?
I don't know. Maybe.
Letterman is when you play in varsity. I think then you get a letter.
Yeah, you get a letter if
and
you
then
just
you get
make
a letter
the
for
team.
your coat.
Yeah.
Did they have coats when you were in high school?
They did. I didn't know what
Did they have letters on it and all
I
that?
got a letter, but I didn't have the coat, and I didn't want a coat, so I think I kept the letter. But it was kind of weird because our high school lacrosse team was so small. We had 2 high schools support the team. So I got a letter from a different school.
Oh my God.
Although I kind of went to that school because I studied Japanese there. So I basically went to 2 high schools.
Oh, of course you did.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
Why go to
Anyway.
1 when you can go to 2?
I know, right?
Hey, I didn't want to learn Spanish or Latin. I wanted to learn Japanese. So
There you
I
go.
trucked to Littleton High School 3 days a week to learn Japanese. I was very motivated. Also
Nice.
another past life thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So did you pick lacrosse because it was Ivy League sport, or was there something about
No.
lacrosse you like?
My brothers played it growing up, and I was like, that looks cool. And then, much to my chagrin, I saw that they toned it down for the ladies.
Mm.
So like hockey, lacrosse, for those who don't know, it's a pretty niche sport, even in the U.S. It's like hockey, but you play it in the air, and you've got like nets on a stick at the end. You've got a hard ball,
okay.
and you throw it around, and you catch it.
That seems like a bad idea.
And it's a pretty like hard ball, like
A
rubber
rock.
with a core cement. Yeah.
Jesus.
And you can get those things flying at like 80 miles an hour if you've got the right arm for it. Anyway, so the men's lacrosse, they have full pads, right? They've got like helmets, shoulder pads like football players, American football players. And they've got long sticks for defense, short for offense. So I saw my brothers playing this sport. I've got 2 older brothers. And I'm like, oh, that looks cool. Because, I don't know, you just follow what your siblings do. And so I sign up for girls lacrosse. And they give us a stick that looks different. It doesn't have the same net or pouch. So it's harder to catch. And then they gave us skirts for our uniform.
What?
It's like World of Warcraft, when you get your, what's it called, the top armor.
Oh, yeah, like tier 1
Tier
armor for a
armor.
warrior or something.
Then the warrior guys are covered in armor,
Yeah.
and then the girls have a little bikini armor.
Yeah. It was literally that. Literally that. So we had tank top, we had sleeveless shirts with a collar and a skirt.
Uh-huh.
And like that was our uniform. No pads. And we could wear goggles and mouth guards, and we couldn't check. So we couldn't I guess tackle the way the men would, right?
Mhm.
We had very constrained rules on how to do it. So I signed up for this sport, and I'm like, this is a whole different sport. What the heck? But I still wanted to do it, and it still
Right.
ended up being fun. So
Yeah. That's good.
long story short, soccer is pretty universal. I played a lot of that too.
Yeah.
That you still just have a ball and run around and kick it. Yeah.
What position were you in soccer?
Depends on the time.
Of course.
I would say as an adult, I played co-ed, adult league, recreational, so men and women on the same team, which was
Mhm.
fun. In those, I played left back, mostly because we needed a left back, and I was too slow and not good enough to play a sweeper or striker or other things.
Right.
Earlier when I was a kid, I think I played like a left or right forward or something.
Yeah.
So kind of floated around. But left back was super fun. And I actually really loved playing co-ed because I would like tackle a guy like twice my size and be like, yeah. tackle that guy, got the ball. Or when I would score, it'd be like, yes, it was so great.
I didn't know you could tackle in soccer.
Yeah, you just have to hit the ball first.
Okay.
Yes, you have to hit the ball first. Otherwise, you're got
Get a yellow
card, and a red card.
That too.
And then you're out.
Yeah, don't swear at the refs. That will give you a red card.
Yes.
I did that a few times.
Did you?
Yeah.
You got red cards.
Yeah. For swearing at the refs. Don't do that. Not good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's funny.
Sports are fun.
That's cool. So, what led you to your career path, and what made you go all the way to a doctorate?
Good question. A couple of things. I think it was there were two main motivators. One was fear-based and the other one wasn't. So the fear-based one was, to put it bluntly, I didn't want to grow up. Like, I didn't want to graduate from college and get a job that would crush my soul.
The forever student syndrome.
Forever student syndrome.
Yes,
But
you find a lot of those in universities all over the world.
Yeah, there was a forever student syndrome. And the other part of it, and this was the part I couldn't quite put words to until much later in life, but I didn't see a structure in society that really supported learning and teaching in a way that felt holistic. And it's not holistic, but the point being, like, there's a culture, there's a system, there's a space to study and just learn and really immerse yourself in education and learning. And I love that. I really love to learn. I don't like the power over others version of it, but it was the closest thing I could get to. And I just loved being surrounded by books and talking to people who were talking about interesting things and learning about interesting things. It's really an expansion of an awareness expression. So that was the other part of it too. And when I was looking at these elements of life that I was really interested in, like first there was Japanese. I majored and minored in Japanese language and Chinese language, and then saw the whole video game thing. I tried going into game development as a profession. I did a couple startups around it, but didn't quite have like the full push for it, like to be a software developer or the full-on artist or the animator. Like, dabbled, but I'm like, I don't know. It just didn't quite resonate. But what I couldn't get past was just the psychology behind games. Like, they figured it out. They figured out how
game theory.
Literally, game theory. Yes, economics game theory, but like just psychology game theory. And it's like, how could I spend 100 plus hours doing the same thing over and over in a video game and love it? But if I do it like at a job or a different class, it's like the worst thing ever. Yeah. So I wanted to investigate like why and how. And a lot of that theory has actually since been used and applied to like social media and real life, getting people to click and all these things. But point being is there was an element of just pure intellectual curiosity.
And what pushed you out of academia?
Well, I had to graduate. No,
you could have stayed.
You could have multiple PhDs, I think.
Yeah, there's postdocs, becoming a professor, a tenure faculty.
Right,
exactly.
There were many things. I had my spiritual awakening during the PhD. I'm shocked I even finished, honestly, as a result. But what I couldn't get past was, no pun intended, but the game of academia. Like the politics, the structure of it just is so insular and dogmatic. I'm like, this is fucking bullshit, pardon my French. But it is, like, it's BS. And I was looking at my life. I'm like, okay, if I do these things, I become a tenured faculty, which is research a topic that will get you funding, write grants to get the funding, do the research to submit for the grants, maybe teach if you care or you're forced to, rinse, repeat.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't think that's for me. You know, I loved teaching. I do love teaching so much. It was my favorite part of academia. But all the things that come with it.
It's too much. Huh?
Just too much. It was awful.
So, I guess you mentioned it already. You said you had your awakening in that moment. Can you tell us about that? What was it that triggered your awakening?
Yeah, what was the catalyst?
What was the catalyst for that?
There are a couple of major things that sparked it because it was a progression. The first one was, Okay, there's a few. So when I was a kid, I played with a Ouija board with a bunch of friends. Don't do it. And called in a spirit, and I physically saw the spirit.
Wow.
And not only that, but everyone else in the room did too. And it
Triple,
left
quadruple. Wow. How many were there?
like
People.
three or four
Were the relatives or friends?
friends, about the same age.
Same
We were
age.
probably like 7 to 12 years old. Yeah, friends. I guess maybe a sibling. No, just relatives or
What did it
friends.
look like?
So what we did is we called in the spirit of my friend's deceased grandmother, something like that. And we asked the spirit to give us a sign of your presence. And they said, okay, come back this day at this time, turn off all the lights, whatever. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. So that's what we did. And so we're sitting in this dark room, like pitch black, like no window, dark room. And we're all waiting. And I look up in the corner of the room, and I see a pair of glowing green eyes in the corner of the room.
Wow.
And I was like, guys, look. And then beneath that, there was like a red light beating, like a heartbeat, like right underneath it. And everyone looks and they scream and, freak out.
Run away.
Yeah. Flipped on the lights and ran away. And then, so the reason why this was impactful is because nothing of quote unquote science could explain that. And I asked everyone, and I'm like, you guys remember what happened, right? Like you saw that, right? They're like, yeah, we saw it. Even decades later, I said, you remember that, right? Like, I don't want to talk about it.
Still.
That's the baby's room. I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, so it left this mark of, oh, there's more to the world than what meets the eye. And I tried on some level to explore that from the like scientific perspective. I didn't get a lot of answers. A little bit once you start delving into like
When you were 7?
This is later in life. But I mean, it left that mark of like, there's more to the world. So it started to come about, I think it was in high school. I watched the movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? Love that movie. I think Ileana mentioned it too.
Yeah, that was impactful for her too.
Yeah, and that started to pull together pieces of the threads of the larger picture. And then I think after that, I was in college, undergrad, and there was a viral video that came out called Zeitgeist. Did you guys ever see that movie?
I think so, yes.
So this was like some YouTuber. This was before all the algorithms control everything.
Yeah.
And this guy put together a video that basically systematically talks about the cabal, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And like the first time I saw these pieces like put to language. And the reason why at that point it was also impactful because my boyfriend or husband at the time, I can't remember what time specifically, but he was in the military. And that was when the U.S.-Iraqi war was really hot and big and got deployed and stuff. So I was in the thick of like that narrative, and it basically shed light to all of the political games and manipulations. Yes, the machinations around that, and like the Federal Reserve and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And it ended on a very high note, at least from what I can remember. It's been years since I've watched it. But it kind of hinted at this element of like spirituality and like vibration and frequency. And so I was like, I want more of that. So I did some digging, found some other conspiracy theorists. Some were good, some not so good. I won't mention names. But then it just opened up this wide world of like reptilians, Anunnaki, and frequency shapes reality, and pyramids, and all of it, right? And then I discovered your work, and it was actually sent to me through my mother because she knew I was into this like new age stuff. And I say new age, but like your work is way more than that. But she's like, hey, I think you'll be interested in this. I really like her stuff. She sent me your blog, and I just was like, this is what I've been waiting for. Because I could tell with all the other stuff, there's just BS laced in it. Yeah. And they can't help it. It's fine. Some can't help it. But a lot of them they're trying their best. But when I started to read your stuff, I was like, this makes sense. Like, this is the most like neutral perspective on all of this stuff that I can find. And I just like lapped it up. And I just devoured everything you ever created.
Except for when she said nothing's happened on 2012.
I mean, I read that article.
Or is it like, wait a minute.
Actually,
There has to be something.
no,
You were all about that. There ain't nothing happening. I went to a 2012 party. What did you do?
End of the world party. He really did.
I believe
we
you
did some
would.
there was some channeling there.
Well, I
Little bit of
remember
crystals.
people, a lot of those like people big at that time in those spaces were saying like, I'm gonna have a I told you so party, ha ha ha, and I'm like, I don't know. I think there were a couple of things. I remember reading like in elementary school that the Mayan calendar on December blah blah 2020 or 2012, and I was like, oh, that'll be an interesting date. I like literally remember that. But for me, it was, I did feel like this surge of information happening at that time. Like there was a huge wave of like New Agers, granola crunchers, conspiracy theorists that like had this huge surge around that, and I loved it. It was like everywhere.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was cool, and I loved that. I didn't think like anything big was going to happen, like a cataclysmic whatever event, although a lot of people were saying those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I kind of got my suspicions of, as part of this spiritual awakening process. There was a lot of like, well, the aliens are going to come, and then, you know, they're going to blah, blah, and then there's going to be a solar event, and then blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, then the poles will shift, and then the blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my God. So I was just like saturated
You're
and
saturated.
done. But
here I am going to the middle of Shasta, and you're like, don't worry about it.
well, I was also going through like a big personal issue at the time, so I was
Oh, yeah.
very stuck in my own drama.
Mm.
But
Oh. We love drama around here, right?
Kind of do.
Telenovela.
Telenovela.
my life was such a hardcore telenovela. You have no idea.
Well,
No
okay,
idea.
then you talked us into it.
Well, you talked about an ex-husband at the time. Tell us about married life. I mean, you're married, and tell us about all this.
Yes. So I am
In
currently
this lifetime.
This lifetime, where did you meet your
good clarification.
husband, your first husband?
My first
How
husband.
many husbands have you had?
I've had.
She's not
can't
sure.
remember.
She can't
She's trying to,
remember.
like,
Formally 2, but possibly 3.
Okay.
It's
no,
complicated.
A few.
It's complicated.
We'll
She
just
said
say
it
a
for
few,
you.
more than 2.
More than a few. My first.
More than
More than
a
a few.
My first one was my high school sweetheart.
few. Aww.
Yes, thought we were going to be together forever. I was
But
very
just forever
naive.
wasn't forever?
Well, it could have been.
Is that
Forever
the one
wasn't as long
that
as
went
it
to
could have
war?
been.
Yeah, that was the one that went to war. So I was engaged by the time I was 18, which is like not normal where I grew up or in the States, really.
Mhm.
And a lot of it was driven by the war. A lot of it, there's like a big push from the military to like get married.
Mm.
Yeah, they
And I-
definitely want you married.
They definitely want you married.
They pay you more.
They
and
pay
give
you
you a house,
more.
all kinds of
I
stuff.
literally did it for like insurance
I
purposes.
got married.
Insurance. Health insurance.
Dental insurance.
Oh, there you go.
Not a good, well, I would encourage you have a better reason to get married than dental insurance for what
Yours
it's
was a
worth.
cat,
I was
wasn't it?
also, yeah, my cat and my girlfriend got kicked out of the house because I wasn't married. So I had to get married so that we would
Yeah,
have a house.
yeah.
Or,
There
you
were
know,
some practical things to it. Like if he died in combat, which was real,
get a bunch of money.
we knew a lot of people who were killed in combat. So it was like I would get coverage and insurance and validation, like be
And a
treated.
flag
Yeah,
and
the flag and all.
$100,000.
And so there, and he was deployed twice at the time.
Yeah, as a girlfriend, you get nothing.
Yeah, you get nothing. So there
Yeah.
was a real
You
element
get less
to that.
than nothing.
Less than
Yeah.
nothing.
Less than nothing.
Yeah.
So-
You're nobody, and you don't get a flag.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or any money.
Or any money or anything.
Or anything for that matter.
Yeah. So there were a lot of social reasons. And also,
You liked him, I mean.
I mean, yeah, I liked him. I liked him a lot. But I was just so young. Like I didn't know the fuck I was doing.
That's,
I was like 18 and then
well, if you're 18, you know everything. I don't know who you're thinking you
Did you
weren't.
think you knew everything at the time?
I know I was like really, really smart.
well, at the time I knew I really wanted to get married and everyone else was stupid. So yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
That
there
was
you
your
go.
typical 18-year-old. I didn't officially get married at 20. I put it off for a few years,
Oh, okay.
mostly because someone in my family got really mad I was engaged. And so I was like, okay. And then it just ended up happening anyway. So we were together for a long time, like 15 years, something like that, more than half my life at one point. But people change, and
You grew apart?
Well, I would say our fundamental values were very misaligned.
That's a lot of big words for what does that mean?
She's a doctor.
I know, that's why I was hoping for
If
a
you
translation.
can't understand it,
He really wanted to play and keep playing dark games, and I didn't.
Oh.
Especially when the COVID situation was happening.
Oh.
He really wanted to go save everyone, literally, and be a martyr, literally. And it was quite extreme.
Yeah.
And
COVID was an extreme experience for quite a few people.
for a lot of people.
yeah, for me, that was the situation of my personal split of this. There were signs, a lot of signs, that this relationship was no longer compatible. And I just kept ignoring it because it was convenient to stay married. And especially when you know someone for that long. And,
yeah, totally understand that.
Yeah, and our friends and circles, all of it combined. But then when the whole COVID thing happened, and it was like, literally, I cannot live like this, and I don't want to live like this. The whole lockdown experience, from what I could sense, he really wanted that lockdown experience and FEMA coming and all of that. He wanted that. I'm like, no, I don't. And it was bigger than that too, especially around how we see the world. He grew more into, and these are his words, a nihilistic perspective of the universe, which basically means that
thank you,
there's no point to anything. It's survival of the fittest.
Black-pilled.
Have you ever seen?
I think they call that black-pilled.
Yeah,
there's red pills and blue pills, and there's black pills. I think is the black pill one where you
Did you ever see the Marvels movies?
Oh yeah.
What was the last one?
Well, there's been a lot. So
the timeline ones.
The one where the snap event where everyone dies, half of the population's wiped out.
Yeah.
With what's his name, Thanos.
Oh yeah, Thanos.
The whole Thanos thing.
Yeah, he's a badass.
So his whole philosophy on life was that the universe would be better if half of it was gone because resources are inherently limited. So we should just get rid of half of the universe.
It's very altruistic. It's a very altruistic way. If we just get rid of everybody, then it'll be fine.
Yeah. So the Kool-Aid of eugenics and mass.
I mean, it makes sense from some perspectives.
I mean, sure, yeah.
But it has its flaws.
But what about you?
So for me, that didn't resonate. I'm like, that's BS, man. In fact, if anything, it's there's aliens and Lemurians and we could go talk
the universe is
much
grown.
gianter world.
The world's growing. We could go talk to dragons. It was
a billion people was too much. When there was a billion, it was too much. Now we're 8, and it's still too much.
Yeah, it's
not too much.
Just fundamental principles that were not aligned anymore.
My dad used to say, plant 2 people and they get married and they're tulip bulbs or something. And when they pop out of the ground, one's red and one's blue sometimes, and they don't work together anymore.
Well, here's the thing: we were very compatible when I was drinking and smoking pot all the time. I mean, having a Marine Corps husband who went to war was fabulous. I loved it. I loved having a warrior demon-infested badass. I loved it.
That's some cred.
It was great. I could walk down the darkest of alleys and feel safe because I've got a scarier guy next to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I totally can figure that out.
Yeah. And there's something, I don't know, man in uniform.
Man in uniform.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a frequency thing, right? And again,
right. It is true. It's in the wake up part when you get woke up, you wake up to a bigger reality. You just can't play that small game anymore.
No.
It just won't work.
Yeah, sometimes it just won't work.
I think that's why you have that warning on the Ascension 101 course.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because the consequence of taking that class is
real.
Your world gets bigger.
It does.
You can't.
It changes your life.
It's going to change.
Things are going to change, right?
I did take that course. And it changed my life a lot. And not only that, but
I'm not going to lie either. I thought it was I'll get to pick the things that are, it'll make everything better.
Yeah, right. Well, it did, actually. It did make everything better.
Not the bad things. Bad things didn't get better, they got worse.
Well.
It's I can't do this no more.
That's the incompatibility, right?
Yeah, there's
Can't drink no more.
Can't drink. I couldn't drink anymore. I was really frustrated.
It was stupid. One drink and I got a hangover for a month.
Literally.
There's something wrong with this Maybe I try different alcohol.
I
Oh
did that
my
too.
God.
I traveled a
Wine,
lot
no,
for
didn't
work,
work.
and
Yeah.
my colleagues were like, "Why aren't you drinking with
What's
us?"
wrong with you?
I'm like, ever since I started meditating, I just get really sick from it all the time. They're like, "Oh, okay."
That makes perfect sense. Not.
And when they saw me, I like tried. I'll never forget the
Yeah.
day I quit drinking for good. I was in Russia,
Oh my God, in Russia.
Moscow. They were
Vodka.
hosting us, and they were like, "You must drink vodka," and I'm like,
Okay.
I'm like, "No, I can't." And they're like, "No, you must." I'm like, "They're like, what are you, pregnant?" I'm like, I should have said yes.
Yeah.
That would have been your out.
I should have said yes. I'm like, "No," and they're like, "Then you must drink with us." And so, yeah, it was not a good night. Never again.
Never again.
So literally incompatible.
Mhm.
Things like that. But at certain relationships, they become incompatible at a certain time. Or you want different things, and then usually you can grow together. But if you want to grow in different ways or not grow, then it's hard to keep
Yeah,
that
well,
going.
you can't mix the.
So you got
They
divorced?
just don't mix.
Got divorced.
Mhm.
Would you say
Right.
a quick divorce, slow divorce, messy,
I think
easy?
we got divorced in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
15 years and 2 weeks.
Wow.
Holy moly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I realized I had to rip off the Band-Aid because it was the whole COVID thing. Lockdown was fresh and high. It was like, I think it started March of 2020, and this happened April
Jeez
2020.
Louise. You don't mess around.
things were
Don't mess
escalating.
around.
I have to say, I had some great allies and co-creators. You guys,
Yeah, well,
Ashley.
Don't blame us.
don't blame
I'm
us.
not blaming you. I do remember
We had
Ashley
nothing
like
to do with it.
she pounded the light
In
a lot.
fact, I'm still married to somebody else. Can't get divorced if I even tried.
We have
Map to
tried.
this lady.
I have to map to you.
We gotta map to Kara for sure.
Yeah,
it took,
2-week
it
divorce.
took me a long time too.
Yep.
I tried.
For years.
Yeah.
Well,
So we're like, it took us 2 years. It's taken her a decade.
yeah,
And she's still not done.
yeah.
Mhm.
And you did 2 weeks. So that's mighty impressive.
It is impressive.
I would say like all of the figuring out of the divorce happened in 2 weeks, and him leaving was over 2 weeks, and then the paperwork finished maybe like 6 or 7 months later.
Mm.
I had some,
Yeah, the
Stuff.
paperwork takes just to sign it. Stuff.
Yeah. but overall it was like clean, easy, amicable,
That's good.
done. And then a couple years later, I got remarried. Met Fred in Paris, of all things.
Yeah.
And actually, I was there for a trip with a friend, and we were meeting up with some other Walk With Me Now people. And I knew he was in the forum. I knew of him. Like, I think he showed up to a call every once in a while. But one of
Mhm.
our Walk With Me Now friends was like, "Oh yeah, I'll invite Fred. He's not far. He's in Belgium." And I'm like,
Paris, Belgium?
"Yeah,
Is that far?
I know, but it's easy, right? I don't know.
I don't know.
Crazy to me.
They're like here and here or something.
And yet for us, it's just like driving to Seattle or something."
Yes. Yeah.
So then we met up there, and he, we were both like, had other things going on at the time. But long story short, he moved out here. I had a, what do you call it? Unrequited love for him for a while. He was trying to make his marriage work, and it's like, jerk, trying to save his marriage. But then eventually that didn't work. Yada, yada, yada. We ended up getting together, and now we're happily married.
You have to
Almost
be
a year.
Both single at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice when that works out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be more different than the last spouse. I have to say, having like support in not only like shared values and interests, but in the work and I don't know, just core things, it makes all the difference in the world. I mean, not only are we on the podcast together, but
Right? That's a good point.
Yeah.
we can like talk about our alien spaceship visits at the dinner table. It's like, this is what I've been missing in my life. Not the lectures about how unscientifically unfounded it is when I'm literally a scientist being
Telling
told.
you-
You're a scientist being
Who's the doctor
you're being
around here?
mansplained this
Yes,
stuff.
I got a lot of mansplaining. But regardless, I'm not a victim.
Okay.
It's fine. Just showed like, oh, these are things I really care about. And there's a
Right,
lot of
right.
compatibilities that matter. So
That's
Yeah.
really good.
good stuff.
Okay. So, what brought you to this moment, place in front of us, getting interviewed as a panelist, expert panelist of Driving To The Rez?
Yeah,
Well-
because I think I think when we met you, you were living in a pretty nice house in the middle of
California, Bay Area.
it was the Bay Area, and it was like the middle of what do they call that? Where all the
Silicon Valley?
electronics, Silicon Valleys.
Yeah.
She had a house in Silicon Valley, and we went to some kind of pub thing for snacks.
Yes.
And met your friends and set of tables. It's like,
And you had 2 husbands at the time.
I did have 2 husbands.
More than one husband hanging out at the time.
Yeah, that was the telenovela part.
And
I had 2 husbands.
Like, okay.
2 husbands for about 8 years.
That's cool. It's California.
8 years.
Wow.
I guess
Yeah.
It's California.
you completely allowed that in
it's like-
California.
That was actually a past life thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That you brought forward.
But I brought forward. Yeah.
into this
In
life.
the woke culture calls it polyamory.
Polyamorous.
Yeah, polyamorous.
Polyolly.
Yeah. So you're non-monogamous, so you're open
No.
to other forms of relationships in your relationship.
It sounds
It's a
very
whole-
California.
It's a whole thing.
Yes.
I'm sure it's
Yes.
everywhere, other places too. but-
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, big changes from California to here.
Uh-huh.
And my trajectory post academia was really tech. In fact, I really wanted to do tech from the beginning. I almost went to California for school, but I didn't get in because I didn't have enough art credits.
Art?
I know. And
Come
then
on.
I ended up committing to CU Boulder. And then I got a letter that said, "Oh, we messed up. You actually did have enough art credits. You're accepted." But it was like 2 weeks
late.
before the start of the semester.
Oh,
and
gosh.
it was all in orchestration anyway. It was fine. Regardless, after graduation, there was a beautiful orchestration of a professor at my department who knew someone at Silicon Valley. They're like, "Oh, I think there's this job opening. You might be perfect for it." It was with an ed tech company called Coursera. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I think I'm actually pretty qualified for this, teaching computer science online." It's like what I did.
That sounds good.
And long story short, got the job, jumped ship, moved from Denver to California, lived in Silicon Valley, in the peak of the valley, for 3 or 4 years. And I loved it. It was great. But I saw like the timelines of what was going to happen. Like if I stay on this timeline, I'll become this big executive at whatever company and hate my life. And I would wake up like at
A successful life that you hate.
successful life that I hate, and wake up 2 or 3 decades later remembering why I'm actually here and then doing it then.
Oh.
And then I thought, well, why don't I save myself the 3 decades and just do it now?
She's so
So now
smart.
you're a top exec in a tech company, but you're living the dream life, right?
Living the dream life. This is my backyard. This is
I know
the dream.
It's so nice.
Stunning.
It's
It's
stunning.
a
Beautiful.
stunning backyard.
Yeah,
The beach is
California.
right there.
California just wasn't for me, but the orchestrations that led to being here were numerous. Not
Right.
only
Because you're pretty well entrenched, right? You have a executive job and a house and
2
husbands and all of the
and a dog
stuff and
a
dogs.
cat.
Yeah.
And I mean, not a unhappy life. And probably it was like, nice, I live here. Everything that I always kind of like dreamed about is like here.
and yet
You're not there.
that like core something is missing.
The one thing that was more important than all those things.
Yeah. You know, when you like live your life and everything on the surface seems okay and happy,
Or
but
even better than okay. Like,
but in your core you're just like, this isn't right.
Not quite right.
This isn't
it? It's
right.
not quite right.
You can't put your finger on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yep. So I basically doubled down on using your tools. I went to a retreat, the Shaman Shack, met you guys in 2017. That was great. And did mentoring, did the work, and shed all of that BS, the belief systems. Wink,
oh,
wink.
yeah,
It's very good.
belief system.
And so here I am. Yeah. It was quite a journey, I have to say, but really thankful for it. And I think it just comes down to where do you want to be and what do you want to do with your time and how do you want to connect and live. And although I really loved like being in the Bay Area with the Bay Area life, you know, I loved tech and venture capital and the yummy Asian food and shopping and all that. It was like at the end of the day, there's that connection with Gaia and like your tribe and spirit, and it's like it's hard to describe, but it wasn't that. And it's not to say I can't be a techie or a gamer and have that. It's just California was not conducive to my life, actually.
Yeah.
I got spat out And we've had podcasts about this, of getting
Spit out of
spit out
California.
of California.
I know I keep trying to go back to, and they just always spit me out.
Yeah.
I don't even want to go over it. I don't even want to.
Guy has other plans, which is fine. So I saw this space when I came to the retreats here, and I'm like, I had no idea places like this could exist.
So beautiful.
So
here.
beautiful. And it's the opposite of Denver, because Denver is like high and dry without water. And this is like mossy and wet and lush and full of chi. And I'm like, oh my God, this reminds me of like Rivendell, you know?
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. So that's the dream.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
So
dream.
if you could talk to yourself from 20 years ago, what would you say to yourself?
20 years ago.
Yeah,
20 years ago. So I would be 16 years old.
Yeah.
Ooh, what a great question.
Wow.
I could talk to myself at 16. I would tell her. I feel like I'm telling her now.
Maybe you should wait till the second hour so they get to know what you would tell her.
Ooh, leaving a cliffhanger?
Yeah.
Oh. Dun, dun, dun.
Because we are over time.
Okay, we'll
All right,
save it for the
so-
second hour.
I think that's a great idea for your second hour. And I'll give you time to think about it. What would I tell my 16-year-old self?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you can find out in the second hour.
Yes, on drivingtotherest.com. Go and subscribe,
Go
get
and
your second
subscribe,
hour, and
give it
let's
a
find
listen.
out what Dr. Kara tells her 16-year-old self.
It's already done.
She already told herself.
She's in a quantum manifestation mode here.
That's true. Just you
Wow.
wait.
Love it.
I love it too.
Thank you
thank
guys.
you
This was
so
so much fun.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay.
See you then.
We love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
You are a medium, but how did you know you were a medium? Because from my experience, I've been in your sessions, and when I was back in LA, I paid good money to see a lot of people who were doing medium-like things. They were channelers and otherwise, and there was groups of people that went and they were fascinated in LA. And then when I saw you do yours, you were every bit as good or better than most of the people I saw in LA. And so that's, how did you know you were a medium? And tell us more about it.